Okay, well, welcome back to App Promotion Summit Berlin 2021. We're in the fourth day of the festivities, and this is the third session in the App Engagement Zone. Very excited to welcome Irem and Jansu, who is in a spaceship right now. A very futuristic background she's got. I've been assured it's not a virtual background. She is actually in this this pod or whatever it is. And yeah, we're really happy to have them here today. And they're going to be talking about how to use in-app marketing to grow your app. So I'll hand over to them now. Please give them a big, warm, virtual welcome to the stage.
Thank you so much, James. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today at this session at Promo Summit Berlin virtually. I really hope that it will be a fruitful session together. So our topic for the day is in-app marketing, and we will be talking about why it is important for the marketers of today for mobile growth, the available channels to deploy in-app marketing strategies, and the shortcomings of these channels and the challenges that remain for marketers. And we will also focus on new and innovative ways to amplify the impact of your in-app marketing for mobile growth. But before getting started, let me just briefly introduce ourselves. So I am Irem, and I am the Operations Director at App Samurai and Storyly for 4 years now. And before that, I was actually a brand marketer in Unilever and Nestle for about 6 years. So I can say I am passionate about anything and everything that has to do with disrupting, exciting, and facilitating the world of marketers today. That's the main reason why I also joined App Samurai. And here, Jansu is with me. She's a colleague of mine from App Samurai, working as the Senior Product Manager for Storyly for about 3 years now. She has a bachelor degree from computer engineering, and she also had her master's in the same field in Georgia Tech. So she started her career as a software developer and then pivoted to product management, which actually became a passion point for her. And now her main focus is empowering mobile apps through better, more robust engagement and retention strategies via great products. Of course, to be able to do that, she spends a lot of time with app owners, developers, mobile marketeers, and product managers to understand and explore their needs. And she will be speaking about these a lot more as we proceed with the session. And finally, let me briefly introduce you to our company. So App Samurai brings a comprehensive approach to mobile growth with its 3 products, tapping into different stages of a mobile app's lifecycle. And our latest product, Storyly, which is the main topic today, is actually the first user engagement tool that brings the mobile native in-app story format into mobile apps with all of its functionalities. So I guess we can say it serves for a variety of key pain points of mobile marketers of today, ranging from onboarding, feature adoption, product discovery, in-app communication, engagement, retention, conversion boost, and so on. But let's come back to in-app marketing first, our main topic of today, why it is important in the first place. So first thing first, in order to grow your app, what do? So you acquire new users, right? However, if you cannot keep these users in your app, all of these user acquisition efforts will be for nothing. And let's talk about statistics. So according to a report by Statista, approximately 25% of mobile apps are abandoned after being used only once. And actually, in 30 days, a shocking 97% leaves the app without ever coming back. Considering the efforts, the investment that you put into acquiring those users, I guess we can say that it is even more critical for app owners to retain these users within their app and convert them to loyalists. So in-app marketing is actually about catching the moment. So it is simply delivering a message or a more extensive marketing campaign in your app while your users are actively engaged with your app's experience. It is actually all about facilitating that moment with the right message that is conveyed through the right channel. And I guess the key differentiation between in-app marketing and other marketing activities is that the user in target here is already actively engaged with whatever your platform, your app, your service is offering. So it's not like the prospective or potential or inactive users whom you would be targeting through more pushy strategies. It is an already acquired user circling in your virtual store, trying to understand whether there is something out of interest for him or her there. So it is actually the best time for you to utilize that user's data in order to deliver more personalized, smarter, and more relevant messages. It is also the best time that user has the highest likelihood of engaging with you, discover what you have to offer, and take any desired action, let it be a subscription, a first purchase, or an upgrade. And that is why having a robust in-app marketing strategy is critical. It is actually the gateway that would ensure you can actually convert those hardly acquired users into loyal users. And of course, there are numerous channels that serve for in-app marketing activities like in-app messages, in-app notifications, modals, tooltips, pop-ups, and of course, your design elements like banners, cards, carousels. But I guess we can say there is a challenge that still resides here. How will you make it without bombarding them with messages, disrupting their user journey, at the same time being engaging and effective? I assume you would all agree at this point that all of these efforts should serve to make that user's experience seamless, undisrupted, and as customized and as engaging as possible based on that particular user's wants, needs, and habits. And at this point, I would like to leave the floor to Cansu to talk by examples. So Cansu, as an expert on product that conducts a lot of exploration calls with potential clients, mobile marketers, product managers from the ecosystem, could you just tell us a little bit more about what you see as the main pain points highlighted by them in the context of in-app marketing and engagement?
Of course. Thanks so much for this intro, Iram. So you already briefly mentioned in the beginning that Story is a tool that enables apps to have mobile stories of their own in their own platforms. Stories buyers are businesses, mostly marketing professionals actually. And when you think this way, it's a B2B product. But through our customers, every day, millions of people view stories and interact with them. So this actually makes Story a B2B2C product instead. Knowing this, we need to know the expectations and understand the problems of app marketers, product people, and of course, mobile users. That's why we constantly conduct interviews, analyze this data, and come up with insights to really get into their shoes and relive their mobile experiences and take action in the product accordingly. Coming to engagement, the first thing to note is that engagement has different meanings because there are different metrics for different verticals. For example, for an e-commerce app, it can be product page views, add to cart actions, add to favorite actions, and needless to say, conversion. For a content or a news app, it's probably session time or article views. But regardless of the vertical, we can highlight the fact that users are exposed to a lot of information in their daily lives. And because of this exposure, they now have about 8 seconds of attention span. So here comes our first problem. Marketers have a tough challenge to attract their attention. They need to provide an immersive experience while making them take the desired actions in the app. The whole messaging in the app should be non-intrusive. For almost any kind of business, the mobile platforms should be leveraged for discovery too, because people love using their mobile devices to find out new stuff, to learn about new services, etc. So marketers should keep in mind that apps are not just for taking some core actions, but also playgrounds for discovering new products and services too. That's why today we see many discovery and shopping related features in mobile apps are converging into what we are already seeing in Instagram or TikTok, including live video shopping experiences too. And here comes another challenge. It's so hard to convince mobile users to scroll down because they want to discover products, but what we see is that it's they don't actually scroll down in the app. They just see just a few lines. So if you are using carousels in this case, for example, you probably can only show about 3 to 5 of them to a user. So it gets so hard to encourage them to take action and discover new products or services. But how are you going to win your users' heart in this game? We observe that marketers are looking for an extra layer, an extra dimension to showcase their products and content. This is mainly for engagement. They want their users to explore new things within the app with no hassle. We will get into this extra dimension thing later on. And it's also crucial to connect your users personally. However, when it comes to personalization, considering just age, location, gender are just old-fashioned. Although they are great for segmenting your users into groups, in the age of hyper-personalization, they are definitely not enough at all. You should have a conversation with your users like you know them very well and like you understand their needs and what they might like. Imagine you're using a fashion app as a user, and they ask about your style, your daily clothing preferences, and recommend precisely what you would love. This is a golden experience for everyone. You can also gamify this getting to know your users process, fun and dynamic with polls and quizzes. Marketers also need new layouts for improving engagement and retention. In-app messages are providing just one-way connection and communication, but marketers have multiple campaigns, many offers for their users, and need them to see what's going on. But encouraging the users to take action should be done without interrupting the whole experience. Iram, you already mentioned some of the ways to communicate with users while they are actively using the app, banners, pop-ups, etc. But they also have their own challenges, mostly in the points that I just addressed. Firstly, they interrupt the user experience and cause disturbance. That's why users developed a kind of immunity to them. That's called banner blindness. As mobile users, we now tend to ignore the banners. So let me give you some interesting research data about that. The first banner in the digital world was sold by Hotwire to AT&T in 1994, and the conversion rate was around 44%. If you check the current stats, the conversion rates for banners are less than 1%. Of course, banners do exist today. Of course, we see them today, but we are totally blind to banners. So when we consider the user journey from onboarding to discovery to loyalty, the challenges we mentioned need to be overcome by marketers. And when we look at our research data based on the marketers' needs, we see that new and different ways to communicate with mobile users is necessary to achieve engagement and retention goals.
Thanks a lot for that summary on the main insights, challenges, and pain points, Cansu. I am sure that all the app marketers that are listening us today can certainly relate to a lot of them, right? They try to onboard people through pop-ups, announce new features through in-app messages, try to convey multiple messages from a fraction of a screen through banners or carousels or cards that are mostly static and most certainly not interactive. And most of these channels and elements have their roots in the web, as you said. They are not born from mobile. I guess this is something that hinders their effectiveness in such small screens that actually became everything about the user experience today. So in order for in-app marketing to be robust, ideally, the experience itself should offer something immersive, seamless, and not disrupting. And the best would be for the user to engage with the content intentionally. And I guess here is the point where we can start talking about in-app stories as the ultimate solution for that. But before we step into that, why the story format in the first place? The format itself is born and bred in mobile. So Snapchat introduced this full screen content format, full screen vertical format to us in 2013, and Instagram made it a global phenomenon in 2016. And now it is actually the dominant content sharing and consumption format in mobile. Why it is this addictive? I guess as the end users ourselves can also intuitively have a, let's say in this, but the hand gestures, the FOMO effect, the fact that if you don't watch that story in 24 hours, it will be obsolete and you will no longer be able to see that. And actually you can engage with the content and immediately get the result of your response. If you answer a poll, you would see where you reside in a community. If you answer a question, you would see whether it's the right answer or not. And also, of course, the immersiveness of the experience itself, being full screen without any disruption. All of this, I think, is telling us by nature, the format of stories proposes tremendous opportunities for the marketers of today. And actually, it is also directly related with what Cansu said in terms of the less strict boundaries between different verticals, social apps getting closer to e-commerce and shopping platforms and vice versa. So considering from all of these perspectives, why not have in-app stories as your main channel for your in-app marketing activities? And when you consider it from an easiness point of view, why wouldn't you do that by integrating the lightweight SDK of Storyly into your app without any hassle? So the format itself responds to major challenges that Cansu has described earlier from our research regarding being non-intrusive, voluntary, immersive, personalized, etc. And on top of that, through the whole user experience journey that we have been talking about by far, beginning from the onboarding to becoming a loyal user of the app, Stories can actually offer a lot of touch points to app marketeers with its functionalities. Let's just take a look at them with some examples. So starting from the acquisition, the first thing that will come is onboarding, right? So you can onboard your users about what's expecting them in your platform through simple step-by-step how-to stories, and you can even include the video content when you didn't have that option with other channels. On top of that, after the onboarding, you can immediately get instant feedback from them through polls, quizzes, questionnaires, and you can actually customize the next onboarding journey based on the feedback that you receive from your customers. And this feedback journey, this loop can continuously be on throughout the user's journey within your app. So you can continuously be fed by the user's behavior on the interactives, the answers that they give you, so that you can actually make it a lot better for the user to experience the journey of your app. What else? I mean, help them discover new features. It is sometimes difficult to find what's new about the app when it's hidden in other pages. Through stories, you can actually help your users discover new features similar to what you do with onboarding via step-by-step guides and taking them immediately to this new feature through call to action buttons or swipe ups. And let's say you're an e-commerce or fashion platform. You can just show bundles of product combinations in one single story through product tags instead of leaving your user to scroll down every step of the way to discover what you have to offer. And you can show different content with different segmentation. As Cansu said, I mean, location, age, gender, these are not enough today. So you can actually differentiate the content based on your user's journey within your app, their actions, their behavior, whether it's a normal user, an elite user, or a newcomer. And of course, for your, let's say, big promotions, for your big events, you can use countdowns to create a sense of emergency. You can also bring the gamification element into your app, even if it's a non-game app. You can just make, let's say, daily trivias, weekly trivias, ask questions, also educate your users thanks to these interactive elements, and also make it more sticky for them to come back and back to your app. And also customize your content by hyper-personalization, smartly personalizing the content in your app by being fed into the data points that you gather from the interactives, from that user's behavior through stories, and make their journey more smarter, more streamlined. And of course, the influencers, right? Everyone is nowadays using influencers. It's a huge, let's say, phenomena. You can actually bring the influencer effect into your app through stories and make it even more amplified through interactive video on demand experience itself. So when your influencer is actually talking about a product or a service that you provide in your app, you can actually put the call to action buttons or the questions or the polls to the exact moments that you would like to address them to. So you can actually orchestrate your in-app marketing strategy overall throughout this whole funnel through in-app stories. But I mean, these are all examples by theory, right? Let's just switch back to real examples now. Again, I would like to ask you, Cansu, at this point, how do stories as an in-app marketing channel work in practice? You already mentioned what kind of challenges you have observed among the actors in the mobile ecosystem. So let's continue how stories have actually became a solution for them and what kind of results that we have seen so far.
Yes, thanks again, Iram. So let me just start with why in-app stories could solve many mobile marketing problems. Here comes some interesting stats about mobile stories. First of all, viewing stories is the #1 activity on social apps with 42% user engagement. And 74% of mobile phone users use stories on a weekly basis. And lastly, more than 50% of people open a brand story, and more than 85% of them watch the entire story. So, as you also said, Iram, mobile stories are non-intrusive. They are familiar. They are already a daily habit for users. And they're not like banners. There are no blindness to them. We see them still. They are full screen and they are dynamic. And as we can see from the stats that we talked about here, they are also highly engaging. They also build an extra layer for marketers, which is a huge problem for marketers, as I mentioned before. With a single entry point, it's like a portal to a full screen world where marketers can showcase about anything they want without interrupting the experience. So we can say that stories are here to stay. I will just talk about a few examples from our customers from different verticals. Let's just start with MPCO. MPCO is an audiobook app from Poland, and they now use stories to onboard their users and activate them seamlessly in the app. Achieving North Star feature metrics at the onboarding phase is crucial for mobile apps to retain users in the long run. So MPCO utilizes stories to introduce the app to its users and convert the new users into subscribers. They segment their users as subscribers and non-subscribers and show the benefits of being paid users to the non-subscribers. What we see is that stories enable MPCO to achieve great retention results. They achieved a 26% increase in daily retention rate, and their onboarding video stories have 70% average watch length. That's huge, actually. And moving on to our second example, Stepset Go. They're a totally different vertical. They're a fitness reward app that encourages its users to stay fit by allowing them to convert their steps into SSG coins, and they can spend the coins in the bazaar. So Stepset Go positions Story as the core communication channel with their users. Story gives the ability to SSG marketers to connect with their users more often with rich content experiences. In Stories, they also run paid partnerships where they create sponsored stories of Prime Video and Skechers. And also they have daily trivia in their quizzes where they highlight some news from their apps. And they reach great engagement metrics with this. People really engage with their stories, so we observe that around 46% of users use Stepset Go stories. And they have 20% CTR on sponsored stories, which is phenomenal when we consider a typical ad performance, right? So stories also serve as an extra layer of monetization for them. And moving on to our next example, Dominos. As a food delivery app, Dominos announces their new campaigns and features with stories. Recently, they introduced a new wallet feature and explained how it works in the app in stories. And they got a 20% increase in the activation of the wallet feature. Also, announcing big campaigns with stories caused a great 37% click-through rate, and they have significant results on conversion rates too. Their stories have a 64% higher conversion rate than banners. So adding stories to their user interface allowed them to add an incremental increase in conversion. And finally, an example from a different vertical, Moda, a modest fashion app. So they have many users, millions of users from all around the world. And as we discussed, users don't scroll when they land on an app, and they view only a few banners and carousels. So Moda positions stories at the top of their home screen to highlight new products, latest arrivals, special offers, and so on. This allowed users to explore more product content, visit more product pages, and increase session time by a huge 30%. Plus, users who view stories had 61% higher conversion rate than the ones who don't watch stories. So again, stories are the incremental power to improve conversion in this case. So these are just a few examples of how stories can be beneficial for mobile apps of any vertical, and they definitely strengthen the impact of in-app marketing activities.
Great examples and customer stories indeed, Cansu. So thank you so much for sharing them with us in such crisp modes. So I expect we'd be seeing a lot more from these, right? So new cases from different verticals are just around the corner.
Yeah, exactly.
And same goes for new features. As we approach the end of this session, let me just give you a teaser on what's next with Storyly and in-app stories. So 2 exciting additions are in plan. First is conditional stories, where you can actually further customize and engage your users. And how you will do that? The marketers can shape the next content that would come based on the answer that the user gives in the previous story. So if you answered, let's say I answered yes to a poll, whereas Cansu answered no, the next story that I will see in real time will differentiate from what Cansu sees. And on top of that, of course, the second that will come is Ask Me Anything, open-ended questions. So it is for opening a two-way dialogue between the brands, the beloved brands of the end users and themselves, which would, I assume, improve the bond that is in between them and contribute to loyalty. So I hope it was a fruitful session for all of the participants. As we said, in-app marketing is ever more important today. And in-app stories is an innovative channel with all of its capabilities to orchestrate that robust plan. You can catch the right moment of your users in your app through the immersive, customized, non-disruptive, but very interactive experience of in-app stories. I really hope you would enjoy the rest of the show. And if you have any questions, we are here to address them. So I leave the floor to James, I guess. Thank you so much. Thank you, Cansu, again, by the way, for being here with me
Thanks
today.
for having me.
Well, thank you, Iram and Jansu. That was great. Very fluid presentation, covered a lot. So there's a question here from Joe Shepherd, and he would like to know, well, you did touch on this briefly, what type of apps work best for this sort of format? You know, does it really work well on all verticals? And I guess, does it work better on some than others in your experience? Are there really strong use cases you mentioned in some verticals? Yeah.
I mean, let me just go first, and Cansu, please do add on.
Sure.
I guess there is a variety of verticals that can benefit from this feature, because as we said, the layers in between different verticals are blurry now. It's not like, I mean, e-commerce apps do not possess anything about socials or vice versa. On the contrary, it's just a blurry line in between, and the experiences across platforms is just, you know, getting similar to one another. Of course, there are verticals with no-brainers that have been benefiting from Storyly from day one, like e-commerce. As Cansu mentioned, a few examples. We have even more about how on e-commerce platforms, Storyly contributes to onboarding, to product discovery, to streamline the, let's say, user's journey from the starting point to the add to basket. But at the same time, for instance, for a finance vertical, it can actually be a great channel for communicating that complex, let's say, features that they introduce. It can act as a communication channel, and also which would eventually translate into transaction. Whereas for a food and delivery app, for instance, in the Dominos case, when there is one thing in the mind of the consumer when they enter into the app, it is quite difficult for them to discover new features. So when they have a new feature like a wallet, it is normally, let's say, buried in the back, let's say, pages of that app. Through the stories, they were able to demonstrate this new feature to their users with a single tap. They just see it from the stories as a full screen, and immediately through a call to action button, they're just lured into making that purchase decision, that order decision through the wallet feature. And of course, same thing goes for content, for loyalty platforms, where personalization and what your users does and what your user gives you as a feedback, how your user engages with you is very important. The interactive features as well as the targeting options provides a lot of opportunities. Like, for instance, our dear MPCO, that Cansu has mentioned, is planning to have a wrapped version of themselves that Spotify does every year, and we all share it from every social platform because we love to hear about our experience in the app from the lens of the app itself, from the platform itself. And they are planning to do the same thing for their users, for their audiobook, let's say, summary of the year, for them to see where they sit in the community of MPCO through in-app stories. So again, entertainment, like health and fitness, Stepset Go is a great example for that. So for health and fitness, building a community within the app is very critical, and stories can actually provide a gateway for that with the video content that you can actually accumulate from your, let's say, community, and then share it from your power users, for instance, and you can just share it from the platform and make people feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. And same thing goes for like subscription-based apps, where you can actually tease the content that would trigger them to subscribe for that service. And also about the gamification part, I think that would serve for a lot of verticals. For instance, like Dolap, it's a Turkish, let's say, biggest Turkish secondhand marketplace. What they do is at every day, at 5 days period, they announce a letter from a promo code, which makes people to actually come to the app on a daily basis to collect that letter, so that at the end of 5 days, they would be able to use that as a promotion. But of course, think of it from this perspective. You make that user come to your app at every day at a certain hour. You can show other things to them as well. So, I mean, as I say, like entertainment, loyalty, food and drink, shopping, health and fitness, finance, e-commerce, all of these verticals can actually find a lot of benefits for them, a lot of value for them when using in-app stories.
Great. And Jane, who's working an app in the education sector, Jane Moran's asking about age differentials. So do you see is there any differentials in general in terms of retention by age? And is story format better for maybe younger users, or does it work across age demographics?
Iran, maybe I should give a quick example of that. So, of course, retention sometimes changes by vertical and of course by age, but what we have seen in stories is that, so for example, finance apps, they are like mostly not millennials are probably not very using them a lot, and probably some older people are using them a lot, but what we've seen in stories is that they got used to stories pretty easily. So stories affected that like in those apps too, stories affected the retention rates in a positive way too. So I mean, long story short, I can say that, of course, I mean, for some verticals, age can be a factor for retention, but for Storyly, we've seen some like positively surprising things on retention. Iram, would you like to add something?
I can just add on to that, maybe. I mean, James, so basically, as I say, banks, for instance, in Turkey, almost every bank is actually using Storyly right now. And you can imagine the age difference in between banks and their mobile users. So I think the age range is a lot, let's say, wider than we can imagine. It's not just for millennials. It's not just for Gen Z or Alpha generation that's coming out. It's the obvious choice for them. But I think for, let's say, boomers, or I mean, anyone in between ages 30 to 60, etc. So whoever actually shares content on social media, goes on to Instagram, they're just so used to consuming this format. Our fingers just go immediately to touch upon that story group and open up its content and engage with it. So that's why I don't think it's just a skew to a younger generation. It actually works for older generations as well. And we're seeing it by example in our clientele, I shall say.
Yes, because like by nature, stories are very intuitive.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
like when you just open a story, the full screen just gets your attention. So that's why there's probably like almost no age differentiation in that sense.
Great. And Jack, who's working at Merble, which is an e-commerce app by the looks of it, he's asking if we implement Storyly, how independently can we create content? Is there self-management platforms? So I guess, yeah, it'd be good to hear, maybe it's a final question, a bit more about how you'd integrate this. What's the process? Do you need a lot of developer time? You know, how's it all work? Yeah. And then once you've got it, how can you manage it? Yeah.
Cansu, would you like to go first?
Of course. Well, we're both smiling because we know
Yes.
how easy this process is. So, so first of all, the implementation, the integration part is pretty easy, and that's proven with some like very popular examples in our case. And I can say maybe an hour, and with testing, maybe like 3 hours of implementation time for developers. And after that, we have a panel, we have a Storyly dashboard. It's a platform where you can upload your content and form them into stories. It can be images, it can be videos, it can be GIFs, and you can put, of course, on top of them, you can put interactive stickers, as we discussed earlier, and you can also automate the whole process by, just linking your feeds, your product feeds, or your RSS feeds as well. And like if you're using any kind of personalization platform, or if you have an in-house developed personalization system, then you can also link stories to that with just a simple setup. So I can say that, first of all, like after you start implementation, the integration of Storyly, then probably like in an hour or so, you will see your first stories. And second of all, it's very easy to create content and, update content or automate your content within the Storyly dashboard and Storyly Studio.
I can just add up to that by saying we also provide you support throughout the whole process. Me and my team, we are the responsibles for that. So as Cansu says, the dashboard itself is really intuitive. We have clients who doesn't even speak with us and just go to the dashboard, create their accounts, and go live with their stories in a couple of hours. But we also provide with dashboard workshops where we take them through how they create content. We have sessions about what kind of content works best with what platforms. Of course, we have a team with a know-how with all of these, great clients that we have that has provided us some insights in terms of what works well in what categories, etc. So we take part in every step of the way when our clients are just coming in onboarding themselves to the product itself. So we provide that service throughout the whole process. And as Cansu said, creating content, there are a variety of ways that you can do that. On top of that, via automation quite easily. So I guess when they just sign in, come to the dashboard Story.io, and you would see yourself how easy it is.
Also, like before we're done, I can add one thing. So if you're a brand that uses Instagram or YouTube a lot, you can simply just import that content as stories in your app too. So that's worth to mention, because lots of customers are currently using that.
Great. Okay, well, we've had some good comments here. We've had Tugsi saying, thank you, it's a great presentation. Ricky, thanks a lot, Irim and Jansu, for the very interesting topic. So, okay, one more question. Ole is asking, and Ole is an old friend of ours. She's a head of growth at Musopia, and she has a final, does your platform work with Unity?
Well, for now, we don't have support for Unity, but we are working on it. And Unity is very popular in games platforms, you know. So we are also working in a different vertical, in games vertical. So we are working on it actually.
Great. All right. It's on the roadmap then. Good. Well,
yeah. And maybe we can add just one thing, James. Not Unity, but web is available. So
Yes.
Any web platform, I mean, not just app, but web. We have almost all of the functionalities that we talked about today on web as well. So we can just maybe pinpoint that also before we close up.
Yes.
Great. Well, thanks so much for the presentation today. Yeah, Jane's also saying thank you. So yeah, great feedback today. And yeah, really, really thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, James. It was a pleasure.
Yeah,
next up, we're talking to Revenue Cat. We're going to be talking about in-app subscriptions, another interesting topic, and Revenue Cat also worth hearing from. So thanks again. And yeah, we'll see you at the next session. 2 more to go.